Welcome to Storytime with Herbal Roots zine. I'm Kristine Brown, and today I'm going to read to you a story I wrote for my zine from issue number 2, Take a Peek at Chickweed. Have you ever seen this plant growing in your yard in the early spring? This plant, known as chickweed, is edible and has a mild spinach-like flavor that can be added raw to salads or in a sandwich in place of spinach or lettuce. Like many other early emerging spring plants, chickweed is cooling and moistening, and this herb can help us with hot, dry conditions in our bodies. Chickweed loves our skin and helps us with any skin conditions that are hot and dry, from angry red rashes to itchy, dry eczema. This plant also helps with burns, cuts, scrapes, bruises and blisters, and so on, making it a great addition to salves and oils, along with other spring plants, such as plantain, violet, and comfrey. Internally, chickweed helps with dry, burning coughs and sore throats. Chickweed is also soothing to our urinary tract, helping to cool hot, inflamed conditions. That's just a few things that chickweed can be used for. So today's story is How Chickweed Got Her Stars. A long time ago, there was a thin weed who was never noticed because she was so thin and delicate. One night, she decided she would grow really tall so that everyone would know she was there. She started reaching as far as she could, and she grew tall until she was taller than the daffodils. The next morning, the other plants started marveling over her amazing slenderness and height. They all wanted to meet this new plant. They drank in the nourishment from her roots. She was so excited that when it got dark, she grew taller than the elderberry bushes. The next morning, the butterflies and the bees and the bugs flew among her slender stems and lapped the dew from her dainty leaves. They flew far and wide to tell others of this amazing new plant they had discovered. Encouraged, that night, she grew taller and taller until she was towering over the mighty oak trees. The next morning, the birds darted among her slender stems that were swaying in the breeze. By now, the entire woodland was all abuzz about this new plant. No one knew her name, and no one had ever seen such a magnificent being before. News of this mysterious plant reached far and wide. Animals and nature spirits came from near and far to view this new weed. That night, she was determined to grow higher than the mountains. She pushed with all her might and grew so high that she punctured the night sky. Dazed, she fell back into Mother Earth's lap as stars went shooting all about her. The next morning, every creature in the woodland woke to see this plant toppled over. As they looked on, they noticed some of the stars had become entangled in the hairs of her stems. Everyone started mocking her and calling her starweed, starweed. Embarrassed that her enthusiasm had gotten the better of her and made her look silly, and the fact that the heavy stars stuck to her made her too heavy to straighten up, she lay in Mother Earth's lap and wept seed tears from her star eyes. Mother Earth could not bear to see her little weed child so sad. She implored the rabbits to nibble a little bit on her stems and leaves to trim off the stars and help her to be able to stand up again. They did so and happily discovered how sweet starweed tasted. They could not help themselves, and before they knew it, there was nothing left of her. Laughing softly at the looks of astonishment on their faces, Mother Earth promised that starweed would return that night. And indeed, that very night, the seeds that Starweed had cried sprouted and grew. Every day, the rabbits came by and nibbled on her sweet, juicy leaves and stems to remind her not to grow too tall. And in return, the star blossoms reminded the rabbits not to nibble too much so that Starweed could still shine. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you'd like to learn more about chickweed, you can find the Chickweed ebook in my shop. I'll put a link in the description. It's also a part of my year-long course, New to Herbs, which features 13 herbs over the course of a year. It's a fun way to learn about the medicinal uses of herbs. Thanks for visiting Herbal Roots Zine for Storytime, and I'll see you next time.